Hey guys, Aaron here, and as you probably guessed from this channel, I love movies. I enjoy lots of genres like sci-fi, action-adventure, family, horror, classic comedy, modern comedy, musicals. The only genres I don't really watch are westerns, normal dramas, psychological thrillers, and erotic thrillers. Letterboxd is a great place to log and rank all the movies that you've watched. And around 2020, me and my brother decided to log on Letterboxd every movie we remember seeing. From new movies that came out, like Soul, Dune, Oppenheimer, The Marvels, movies I barely remember watching on Disney Channel years ago, well over a decade now, like Hatching Pete, Life is Rough, and Dad Napped, random old classic movies that we watched on DVD, like Gunga Din, The Spirit of St. Louis, and The Big Sleep, to movies we lost track of how many times we watched, like The Incredibles, Coraline, Kill Bill, and Die Hard with a Vengeance. We logged and rated every single one, and our ranking curve looks like this. Yeah, we don't really go out of our way to watch movies we don't think we'll like. And how many, you may ask? Well, as of this video, 1,238 movies. That's according to this list on my Google Drive. This is my definitive list that I update every time I watch a movie. There's more on my Letterboxd list because I give ratings to things just because, and give funny reviews to things just cause. So just listing all the movies I've seen in order would just be boring. So I'd like to rank them in different kinds of lists. For instance, this is how many movies I definitely remember seeing more than once. 342. Yeah, I don't think I need to watch Jane Eyre, or I'm a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, or Fred 2, Night of the Living Fred more than once. I've also made a whole bunch of lists on Letterboxd. For instance, this is how many movies I've seen in a theater, 135. Starting with the Fathom events of Singing in the Rain, The Producers, the 3D of Jaws, Return of the Jedi, Back to the Future, Clue, Castle in the Sky, Thomas the Magic Railroad, my brother had to watch that, Spirited Away, the 3D of Monsters Inc. in 2012, Shrek 2 and The Incredibles, and Meet the Robinsons is when I started remembering seeing these movies in the theater. And I've seen the re-releases of Coraline in the theater 5 times, including the 3D ones. And speaking of 3D, this is how many movies I've seen in 3D. Monster vs. Aliens, Journey to the Center of the Earth, G-Force, Christmas Carol, when they came out, Monsters Inc. re-release, Star Wars The Force Awakens, Jumanji Welcome to Jungle, just because those were the first show times we got, Polar Express, Alita Battle Angel when it came out, Jaws 3D, amazing, Avatar 2, obviously, and Coraline. This is every feature-length movie that I've seen in order of release, starting with Dante's Inferno, the first surviving feature-length film ever made. And I can say that I've seen at least one film from every year there has been movies, besides 1913, 14, and 17. I've even chose the best movies of that year that I'll eventually watch. 1913, I could watch Fantomas, I'll probably just watch the first part of it, or a movie called Ingeborg Holm, because there's a HD scan of it. 1914, a movie called Cabiria, basically the first historical epic, and 1917, A Man There Was. This is actually the best movie in 1917. Or I could watch Bucking Broadway, because that's on the Criterion Blu-ray of Stagecoach, if I ever get that. And I have seen 48 silent movies and 13 that my brother has seen that I haven't seen, like Ernst Lubitsch films. And I've seen 277 black and white movies. That's 23.36%. I've seen 53 from the 1910s and 20s, 91 from the 30s, 68 from the 40s, 31 from the 50s, 12 from the 60s, 4 from the 70s, and those are Wild Child, The Last Picture Show, Young Frankenstein, and Razorhead, 1 from the 80s, The Elephant Man, 1 from the 90s, Ed Wood, 0 from the 2000s, 3 from the 2010s, The Artist, Frankenweenie and the Lighthouse, and 3 from the 2020s, Come On Come On, Belfast, and Hundreds of Beavers. I also like to rank these movies as my favorites. These are my 100 favorite movies. It's in a vague list, but every position is movies that I'd rather watch. Like, I'd rather watch Lord of the Rings trilogy than Close Encounters again. I'd rather watch Mulan than Everything Ever All at Once. These are my favorite Pixar movies. Yeah, I'm an Incredibles and Monsters Inc. kind of guy. These are my favorite anime movies. Yeah, I like Castle in the Sky a little bit more than Spirited Away, but I also haven't seen many anime movies besides Studio Ghibli films. These are my favorite silent movies. Modern Times, The Gold Rush, classic Chaplin, and then the obvious ones, Nosferatu, Metropolis, and then The General, to have Buster Keaton on there, and then Haxan, Man with the Movie Camera, Die Nibelungen, Siegfried, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, and Lonesome. Yeah, I doubt people have heard of these. And you know, when I'm at work and we talk about old movies with my coworkers, I ask them, how many silent movies have you seen? And they're like, and then I ask, how many silent movies have you heard of? And then they're like, damn, people don't know about the tens of thousands of films they could watch. These are my favorite stop-motion movies, Coraline, obviously, and then Nightmare Before Christmas and Pinocchio. Wallace and Gromit, and then My Life as a Zucchini, a French film. My favorite Ray Harryhausen films. I've seen 10 of them, I just need to see these 4. These are my favorite Charlie Chaplin films: Modern Times, The Gold Rush, Monsieur Verdoux, The Kid, The City Lights, Great Dictator, The Circus, and the only short that I've watched is The Immigrant all the way through. I have Limelight on Criterion, and I just need to get The Woman in Paris on Criterion, a movie that I never even heard of until Criterion released it. And if you've watched my other channel, ADSD Vids, you probably know that I have a lot of movies. I have 545 Blu-rays, and 110 of them being on 4K. And also those are released on 497 different releases. And these aren't technically movies, like Pixar short film collections, cartoon compilations, and such. I have 249 movies only on DVD, making 794 movies in total. But I've sorted them in order of release as well, starting with Dante's Inferno, and then Filibus from 1915. Crime adventure about a woman in an air zeppelin that steals jewels and such. If you want to watch a movie from the 1910s for some reason, watch Dante's Inferno or Filibus. I think that would be just about as good as Fantomas or Les Vampires without sitting through 5 to 7 hours of a serial. And then we got 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 1916, the first movie with footage underwater. And then we got some Ernst Lubitsch and some Fritz Lang films. Yeah, this collection is really good. And that's just the 1910s, don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of them. But I do have 59 silent movies on Blu-ray, and 134 black and white movies on Blu-ray and 4K. That's 24.3% of all the Blu-ray movies that we have. We've even made milestones of every 50 film we've seen, since we've started listing them. And the 1000th we made sure was Grave of the Fireflies. Our 50th 4K was Hugo, and the Fan Cap collection was really special. It's the 100th 4K that we had, the 550th Blu-ray that we had, and the 750th movie owned that we have. And I like putting these films in lists, but I also like them to be more visual, so I made a Google Sheet with all of these movies. This main graph is all the movies that we've seen, all the movies that we have, and all the movies that we have on Blu-ray. And here's the visual graph. You can see that there's a hump in the 30s and 40s, kind of a lull in the 60s and 70s, and then it skyrockets when we were growing up and watching movies, and then bang, 2020, no movies were coming out. We only had Onward, Soul, and The Father from that year. And then it stays around there for the next 5 years. And the only movie from last year that we have is Dune Part 2. Don't worry, we'll get Furiosa, or The Substance, or Hundreds of Beavers eventually. And I found the 4 quartiles of this graph. That means that halfway is 1995 with Before Sunrise. The first quarter is 1952 with The Narrow Margin, and quartile 3 is 2012, Django Unchained. And the most recent film we watched is Paddington in Peru. This graph, I wanted to have a straight line showing the best fit. Well, not a straight line, more like a non-super curvy line. I also graphed it by decade. You can see the hump even more now. This one is a histogram. It's different than bar graph. It shows how many years we've seen a certain number of movies from that year. For instance, we haven't seen a movie from 1913, 14, and 17, like I said before, and we don't have a Blu-ray from 6 years, 1912, 13, 14, 17, 1972, and 2025. Yeah, I don't have, like, The Godfather or Cabaret on Blu-ray. This is a graph of every movie we've seen on VHS. The 3 from 1914 are from this Wizard of Oz collection, and then we have Birth of a Nation. I'm not going to watch that. The 3 from 1925 are The Gold Rush, Phantom of the Opera, and did you know that there was a Wizard of Oz from 1925? We have a few movies on VHS, Blu-ray, and 4K, so I calculated that we have 151 movies just on VHS. Moving on, this is how many movies I've seen in a theater. These are all the Fathom events I've seen before. Earliest is Sing in the Rain. And now my dear brother has weaponized his obsession with data analytics and listed every production company, or company that released the Blu-ray, of all the movies that we have. And here's the graph based on just how many movies we've seen, and here's the graph split into third. Yeah, we have a lot of other due to the silence and Criterions and stuff. We have a lot of Warner Brothers, and about the same with all the other companies. This is the graph showing the decline of how many movies we've seen per year. We saw 202 new movies in 2020, because what else were we gonna do? That's one new movie every 1.8 days, and then 146, 129, 117, and 105. A steady decline because we have work and other shit to do. And the Blu-rays own are declining too. There's only a bump in this year due to the Frank Capra collection. I even made this graph. Every movie that the Flick Pick has in his collection based on this Letterboxd list. He only starts in the 70s, and the only movies before that are from the Columbia Classics collection. Yeah, I highly doubt he watched It Happened One Night. So, just to sum up, we've seen 1,238 movies, we own 945 movies available to watch in this house, 794 movies on optical discs that we can use as coasters, 545 Blu-rays, and 110 of those are on 4K. Yeah, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but if you're impressed, that's fine with me. I just wanted to talk about all this data that I've been written down for the last 5 years to someone that's not just my brother. And don't even get me started on how many books I have.